I just have two items for all of you at the top. We extend our warm congratulations to the Prime Ministers of Kosovo and of Serbia and to the EU High Representative for the success of the high-level dialogue meetings February 9th through 10th, which led to the signing of an agreement on justice arrangements. This agreement marks an important substantive step forward in the normalization process between Kosovo and Serbia. It also signals the continuing strong commitment of both parties to full implementation of the April 19th, 2013 Brussels Agreement. The United States will continue to strongly support all the parties in this effort. The United States is deeply disappointed and concerned by the rejection of Anwar Ibrahim's final appeal and his conviction. The United States has followed the trial of Malaysian opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim closely. The decision to prosecute him and his trial have raised serious concerns regarding the rule of law and the independence of the courts. The United States and Malaysia have a strong partnership, and in the context of this relationship, we have regularly raised our serious concerns regarding the Anwar case with Malaysian officials and emphasized that fairness, transparency, and the rule of law are essential to promoting confidence in Malaysia's judicial system and democracy. And finally, General Allen and Ambassador McGurk were in Kuala Lumpur today, where they met with the Defense Minister and the Deputy Foreign Minister. General Allen and Ambassador McGurk made presentations on coalition efforts to degrade and defeat ISIL. Malaysia is a close counterterrorism partner of the United States and has already taken important steps to halt flows of foreign fighters and combat ISIL's messaging. With that.
Can we stick with Malaysia? Actually, can we go back to Malaysia?
Sure.
Because there's more.
Wait a minute. Do you mind if I ask a question about Malaysia, Matt? You got a problem with that? So, did you actually raise your concerns about Malaysia with the Malaysian about the Ibrahim verdict today with the Malaysian government or not?
Meaning, did General Allen and Ambassador McGurk, or?
And no, anybody other than that? Did the Secretary, has there been kind of
The Secretary has not made a call. We've consistently raised our concerns about this case. That remains the case. I don't have any new updates today.
And are there any consequences, or does the U.S. government, notwithstanding the importance of the U.S.-Malaysian relationship, envisage any consequences for this outcome in what you yourselves have long said was appeared to be a politically motivated prosecution?
You're correct. That has long been our position. Our view is the most important consequence of this verdict will be how it affects the prospects of Malaysia's own future success. As I mentioned in my opening, we have a broad and complex relationship with Malaysia. This verdict and the expanded use of the sedition law will be one of many factors that influences the course of our relationship going forward. We're not engaging in quid pro quo actions, but certainly we take into account actions on the ground.
Thanks.
Go ahead. Did you have a Malaysia question or something, a new topic?
No, I'm a little stunned, but let's go to, I was going to suggest that we begin with something that's a little more breaking,
okay.
And that would be the situation in Yemen and the embassy, and if you can tell us anything about that.
Sure. Well, as you all know, because we've talked about it quite a bit in here, the safety and security of U.S. personnel in Yemen is our top priority, and we are always evaluating the security situation on the ground and taking steps to mitigate risks. We have been reducing staff in Yemen over the past few weeks, as all of you know, given the volatile political and security situation. We have nothing further to announce over and above what we have previously announced. Our focus, of course, remains on what's in the best interest on the safety and security of our staff.
Okay. What is your impression of the situation on the ground right now in Yemen, considering the
political situation or the security?
Political problems, also the security situation?
Well, clearly it's a volatile both political and security situation on the ground, and as you know, that's why we made the decision a couple of weeks ago to reduce staffing. I don't have any updates, as I've noted, on operational matters. As it relates to the political situation on the ground, as you know, there were some talks that convened, I believe it was yesterday. And those UN brokered talks continue. There are some parties that have dropped out before, but rejoined over the course of negotiations. As you know, we strongly support these efforts. As we talked about a little bit yesterday and is very clear, it's a very fluid situation on the ground. So we remain engaged with numerous parties in Yemen to find a peaceful way forward, and we're certainly encouraging dialogue and the efforts to move forward through that path.
When you say that you remain engaged with parties in Yemen, can you be more specific? I mean, when was the last time that the ambassador or anyone from this building met or spoke with any of the parties in
I certainly understand your
Yemen?
question. I'm just not going to be more specific than what I have been.
Well, what can we, I mean, remaining engaged with the parties in Yemen is extremely unspecific. I'm just wondering if you can, I mean, with all sides, with the Houthis, are you in touch with them? Are
We
you in
have
touch with?
means of communicating to the Houthis as well.
So when you say, so your original comment, when you said we remain engaged with all parties, you weren't including the Houthis?
I
in that?
was.
Oh,
I
you
was.
were.
I just
Okay.
was trying to provide further clarification to your question.
Jen, what can you say about the reports that said that the embassy will be closed tomorrow and the ambassador will be leaving Yemen?
I just addressed those reports in the answer to Matt's first question and
that
what I
means-
can provide at this point in time.
You deny them or you confirm them? What?
I just provided all the information I can at this point in time.
The ambassador in the country.
He is.
today.
Yes. Well, does he have plans to be there tomorrow?
I don't have any more details to provide, as I noted, and I think all of you respect this and you cover these issues very, very closely. Obviously, the safety and security of our personnel is one of our top priorities, as well as, of course, our national security interests. And we take steps in order to make sure we do everything we can to protect them.
Has the security situation, in your estimation, worsened over the past week significantly?
Well, as I noted, and I think we all watch this closely and you all report, it's clearly a volatile situation on the ground. We evaluate the situation every single day.
Right.
And there are the highest level officials here evaluating that situation. We don't outline specifics publicly for good reason, Justin, and I think you all understand why.
In terms of your contact with.
Go ahead, Barbara.
the
Sorry.
Houthis,
Mhm.
You said you had a means of communicating with them. Is that direct communication?
I certainly understand your question. I'm just not going to be able to get into more details at this point in time. Go ahead, Saeed.
The pulling out of the ambassador and the closure of the embassy, does that mean that you don't have any hopes in the near future, at least, to have some sort of normalized relations with Yemen?
Well, I think, Saeed, I was very clear in providing the information I can provide. I have nothing more to provide at this point in time. As I noted, we remain engaged with a range of parties, so I think that answers your second question.
Okay, would this reflect negatively or badly on, let's say, the president who's under house arrest now? They feel now that the Houthis may feel that relations with America may be cut off and so on. They could probably move
I don't
to
think our
consolidate
actions,
their power.
I don't think our actions reflect that at all, Saeed.
Thank you.
Yemen?
No, Iraq.
Can we finish Yemen and then we'll go to Iraq? Okay, any more on Yemen before we continue? Go ahead.
There was some reports earlier this morning about gunmen on the street in Sana'a near the embassy. Is there anything to corroborate that?
The story in its entirety is incorrect. I'm not going to go into more specifics, given we don't talk about diplomatic security. Yemen?
Can you confirm that the counterterrorism efforts are continuing, or are you still in touch with the security forces? Has that been affected in any way by the volatile situation on the ground?
Nothing has changed since I discussed this yesterday. We will continue to take action to disrupt continuing imminent threats to the United States and our citizens. We will continue to apply pressure and work through every channel we have access to.
Does that mean that even though the government has changed, the army hasn't?
I think yesterday I outlined, and I certainly understand your question as well, that we have a range of contacts that we have coordinated through, even before the volatility on the ground, and that has continued. Should we go to Iraq? Go ahead.
The Vice President Biden and President Barzani, President of Kurdistan region, they met in margin of the Munich conference. Do you have any detail on that? What has been discussed and any new promises? Because President Barzani said that there are more promises from international allies, including the United States, to better arm Peshmerga.
Well, I outlined in great detail yesterday how much we have provided, and I would certainly point you to that. I gave a lot of specifics about how the arms we have provided, shipments we have made, training we have done, so I'd point you to that. In terms of the Vice President's meeting, I believe the Vice President did a readout, but for any more specifics, I would point you to his office.
There's nothing changed because the reason I asked the question that it's in Kurdish media they said more weapons coming from the United States, and I know that there are plan that you provided information last week, and I had that, and that was accurate. But Is there any new?
Well, I outlined a great level of detail yesterday, and I think the reporting may have come from that. I think most of that may have been out there, but maybe all of it wasn't. Obviously, we remain committed to supporting the Peshmerga forces. You know how we work with them through the government of Iraq, and that will continue. And I expect we'll continue to increase our assistance. I don't have anything to outline for you specifically.
One last question, and this the Senator Ted Cruz he mentioned the process of arming Peshmerga is inadequate and ineffective. What is your response for that? That he said that it should go through Baghdad and it's very slow and takes a lot of time.
Well, as I mentioned yesterday, it's required by U.S. law to go through the central government of Iraq. We've provided, as our partners have, a range of assistance, and I outlined the specifics yesterday.
Can you remind us who decides what U.S. law is?
Well, the United States Congress and the United States government.
So in other words, if members of Congress have complaints about how the administration is legally required to send aid to certain people, they're really complaining about their own legislation rather than.
There are many means to change the law that Congress has a role in. Sure. Any more on Iraq before we?
Can we go to the Kayla Mueller first?
Yes.
I just want to know.
Is that okay, Said? Then we'll go to Syria next.
If you have anything to add to what's already been said out of the
I
White
don't
House.
believe I have anything to add to what my colleague at the White House has already said. But go ahead.
Specifically, can you address in any way whether the U.S. government has any understanding of how Ms. Mueller died or when she died?
Well, the intelligence community has concluded from the information provided by Kayla's ISIL captors that Kayla is deceased. At this time, they are not able to confirm a cause of death. The U.S. military has indicated that there was no evidence of civilians in the target area prior to any recent coalition airstrikes. Obviously, that's in reference to the ISIL claims. We don't have any more details at this point in time.
Nothing would suggest from what you were provided that it happened during the airstrikes. In other words, they weren't trying to suggest that when providing proof of death.
Well, ISIL claimed that publicly. So
right, but did that match their whatever evidence they provided? Did their claims match whatever proof of death
well,
they
again,
provided?
I think I just mentioned that the U.S. military has been clear that there was no evidence of civilians in the target area prior. I'm not going to, out of respect for the family, get into more specifics about what they provided.
So other than the letter that her family received from ISIS, allegedly, is there any other evidence that she's actually been killed?
Well, Saeed, as you know, our intelligence community is confident that the message received was from Kayla's ISIL captors. I am not going to get into more details out of respect for the family.
Is it safe to assume that she was held and, consequently killed in the northern part of Syria, in Raqqa area, or you don't know where?
Again, I think I just answered this question in response to Arshad's question.
Okay.
Did you want to go to Syria?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I may, I wonder if you saw or read about the interview that the Syrian president gave Bashar al-Assad to BBC. Would you comment on that?
We did see the interview that he said. Did you have any? There's a lot to work with.
Okay. Well,
Did
let me ask you about the third.
Okay, go. We'll go Saeed, and then we'll go to you, Barbara.
He said that he receives information through a third party about the bombings and so on. And who would that third party be? Do you know?
Well, I can't speak to that on his behalf, and I think he said more specifically than that. I can be clear about on what we did, and just as importantly, on what we did not do or do not do. Before conducting strikes in Syria, we informed the Syrian regime directly of our intent to take action through our ambassador to the United Nations, and her conversation to the Syrian permanent representative to the United Nations. That has been previously reported. We warned Syria not to engage U.S. aircraft. We did not request the regime's permission. We did not coordinate our actions with the Syrian government. We did not provide advance notifications to the Syrians at a military level, nor give any indication of our timing on specific targets. We would not work with the Assad regime, which has fostered the environment that ISIL has exploited. That has not changed.
What about these comments? And essentially, what he was describing was a back channel, wasn't he, with the Iraqis and other countries that he didn't name? He said, as you just said, there's no direct coordination, cooperation, military information, but there is general information, general messages from a kind of back channel, presumably of Arab countries, especially Iraq. Can you comment on that?
Well, I think, one, we should not be surprised that Iraq, like other countries, is going to have relations with its neighbors. ISIL is a threat shared by all countries in the region and beyond. And as I stated already, but it's worth reiterating, we have warned Syria not to engage U.S. aircraft, but we're not coordinating with Assad or his government. Obviously, we're not going to discuss the details of private diplomatic discussions with the government of Iraq.
Jim, just to follow up on
Or not you have used the Iraqis as an intermediary to communicate with the Syrian government?
I just conveyed we are not coordinating with the Syrian government
know.
pretty clearly. I don't have any more details or specifics I'm going to lay out about our conversations with the government
Do you
of Iraq.
discourage the Iraqis from sharing this type of information?
I'm just not going to have more to offer on this.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit confused. Now, we know that you informed them before the first strikes, which was back in September. Do you do this every time? Is that
No.
what you're saying?
No.
So it was just that one time, and you have never told the Syrians after that there's going to be
I just
bombing.
outlined our engagement with the Syrian regime.
Yeah, but how would you sort of guarantee that there's no conflagrations between the Syrian forces?
I'm not going to get into more operational specifics, Said.
A few more questions on the interview.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so he was asked whether he thought that the Americans were softening towards the regime in that the official policy is that Assad has to go, but recently Secretary Kerry had not said those words exactly. He had said Assad should change his policies, put the people first, think about the consequences of their action. And then Mr. Assad said that depends what Kerry meant. What did he mean?
Well, I'm surprised he has not read the Secretary's remarks at the Munich Security Conference, which happened 2 days ago, where he clearly stated Assad must go. So our position hasn't changed. Assad has lost all legitimacy and must go. We've said that since August of 2011. There cannot be a stable, inclusive Syria under Assad's leadership. So I'm not sure what would have left him with that impression.
But he's very much there, isn't he? Looking more secure than any other time since the war started, and sort of in a sideways credited American policy with that. For example, he admitted that striking ISIS was helping the regime in a small way, he said, but so that policy is reinforcing the regime position. And he also said that the West had personalized the situation, had blamed everything on one person rather than looking beyond that to the possibilities of constituencies of support. So can you respond to
Well,
whether there was a
I
miscalculation
would
there?
take the fact that also in the same speech he denied the use of barrel bombs, chlorine, and also the indiscriminate killing of his own people. So I would take what he conveyed with a grain of salt.
Jen,
One
would you
last
agree-
question on the speech. He sort of dismissed the Syrian moderate. Well, he didn't sort of. He did dismiss the Syrian moderate opposition by quoting President Obama, when President Obama said in August that it was a fantasy to think that the rebels could change the course, that arming the rebels could change the course of the conflict. I think what he said. So, isn't it sort of natural that President Assad can't take the moderate rebels seriously when President Obama didn't take them seriously, and then suddenly changed his mind and a few weeks later did take them seriously, but everyone still kind of not acknowledges that cultivating them as a fighting force is not happening yet?
Well, I think we certainly acknowledge that there's more work that needs to be done, and obviously that's why we are working with the Department of Defense and others in the administration to start the Train and Equip program next month, and we're providing a range of assistance that I can't outline here from the podium. But, this is an issue where we're not just working with one line of effort. Yes, we are working on better equipping militarily the opposition. We're also working with every political and diplomatic channel we can, and there are a range, I think, 50 or more in the global community who attended the Geneva conference just over a year ago, more than that, I believe, if I remember correctly, who are in the same page we are. So it's not just about strengthening them militarily. We're doing that in order to strengthen them diplomatically. That's something that, again, will continue to step up when we begin the Train and Equip program next month.
Jen, did you agree?
This issue, you said yesterday, one of the reasons and the root causes of the growth of ISIL is Bashar al-Assad, who allowed ISIL to grow and prosper in his own country. He allowed terrorists safe havens. He was the biggest magnet for terrorism that we've seen. That's what you said. The question is why the U.S. and the international community have created an international coalition to fight ISIL and did not do so to fight the Assad regime, who, as you said, allowed ISIL to grow?
Well, one, I would say that we still don't believe that there is a military solution to the situation in Syria. We believe a diplomatic and political approach is the right approach. And as I mentioned in response to Barbara's question, even programs like the Train and Equip program and efforts to better equip the opposition, which are focused on ISIL, we fully expect they'll use that to go after the regime as well. But those are efforts to strengthen them politically as well. The situation with ISIL poses a threat to countries in the region. It's a threat that we are concerned about in the United States. And I think we've been clear that that's one that we felt it was necessary for the global community to form not just a coalition, but one that included a military component, but also other components to address.
But the Assad regime is killing and injuring and expelling hundreds of people, of Syrian civilians every day.
Well, and Michelle, as you know, for years, the United States has not only been the largest humanitarian donor in the world, we have helped lead the effort to train and equip the opposition, to get them the type of non-lethal assistance they need, to encourage other countries to do so. We have been conveners of international conferences. This is an issue we remain committed and focused on, and we continue to believe there's no future in Syria for Bashar al-Assad. Go ahead, Saeed.
On the peace plan posed by de Mistura some weeks back.
Yes.
In Aleppo, he's back in Damascus, and apparently he feels that there may be a chance or an opportunity to re-inject life into this process. Would you support these temporary ceasefires?
As we've said before, we certainly support efforts, including by de Mistura, that would reduce the suffering of the Syrian people. Now, there's a troubling history of the Syrian regime and their unwillingness to abide by and respect these type of local ceasefires, but we certainly support these efforts.
Okay, Arab news reports show that al-Nusra is becoming more and more the strongest or the most robust, which you have on your terror list, the most robust military group in Syria. They showed them in training, they showed them in with new uniforms, and have a lot of fun and so on. Are you concerned that they may be funded by some of your allies in the Gulf region?
Well, Said, I'm not sure what reports you're looking at. I'm happy to take a look at those. As you know,
Yes,
we have
please.
a concern about a range of terrorist organizations. Beyond that, obviously, cracking down on terrorist financing is something that is one of our 5 lines of effort with our coalition. Go ahead. Oh, sorry. I thought you had a question too. New topic? Sure. Or Syria? Okay.
I'm just wondering
And
if you
then-
have any, this will be brief, any reaction to the UAE resuming its...
We certainly
Airstrikes.
believe this is a positive step. The foreign minister had indicated to the secretary and the rest of the GCC on Friday evening during their meetings that there were plans to do that. Go ahead.
Ukraine.
Sure.
On the eve of the Minsk summit between President Putin and Poroshenko, led by the Germans and the French, do you have a better understanding, a better assessment of the European peace plan, and are you confident it will succeed, and what will the US do if it fails?
Well, we support these efforts, as the Secretary himself has said, and I think as the President conveyed yesterday. We can't predict what will come out of tomorrow. There are a range of parties that we work closely in lockstep with. There are a range of parties where we have disagreements with, including the Russians. We will be coordinating closely and tracking closely what happens tomorrow. I don't think we know either that there will be a conclusion, because they've had ongoing discussions and meetings over the course of the last several days. Since you gave me the opportunity, let me just convey that we're very concerned about the reports of increased violence in Ukraine, which is not conducive to a peaceful resolution to this conflict, particularly on the eve of proposed diplomatic discussions at the initiative of France and Germany aimed at de-escalating the conflict. In addition to continued Russia-backed separatist assaults in and around Debaltseve, rocket attacks on the Ukrainian government-controlled town of Kramatorsk have reportedly killed 7 people and injured more than 20. We call on Russia and the separatists it backs to halt the fighting, implement their commitments under the Minsk agreements, and fully engage in the proposed trilateral contact group talks in Minsk. This is the best path forward. As President Obama said yesterday, we encourage a diplomatic resolution, but we will not allow the borders of Europe to be redrawn at the barrel of a gun. Did you have another question on Ukraine?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
again, if the summit fails, as many observers and even officials believe, will the U.S. immediately proceed with its plan to deliver defensive weapons?
Well, one, there hasn't been a decision made to provide defensive weapons, as the president stated yesterday and the secretary stated just 2 days ago. Obviously, the situation on the ground, increasing violence, and the unwillingness of Russians and Russian-backed separatists to abide by and implement the Minsk protocols, of which is the basis for the ongoing discussions now, has resulted in discussions internally and certainly with our partners around the world about what the appropriate steps are, whether that's assistance or additional consequences. And I expect that would continue if there is no result from these discussions.
Did you mean lethal weapons rather than defensive, or defensive lethal weapons?
Well, they're defensive weapons. When people say they're lethal, we think that's a misunderstanding or a misnomer on what they actually are. They're helping Ukraine defend themselves.
But the point is, you've given them defensive weapons in the past, correct?
Well,
or defensive items in the past.
Defensive items,
Got
but
it.
we're
Okay.
talking about something slightly different.
got it.
Yeah.
Sudan?
Any more on Ukraine before?
One more on Ukraine.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. There are defense ministry officials quoted in the Russian press. One, they're anonymous, but one says threatens asymmetrical response or retaliation against Washington if any of this aid is eventually provided. I'm wondering if you have any against you and allies on other fronts, they say. I'm wondering if you have any response to that or thoughts, despite the fact that a decision is pending.
Threats against Washington? In what way?
They don't specify. That's part of my question, I guess. Asymmetrical retaliation is what they are.
Well, I don't have
threatening.
any understanding of what that means, so I suggest before I respond accordingly that we get a little more clarification from the Russians about what they intend or if they even stand by those presumably anonymous comments.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Go ahead. Oh, on Ukraine? Okay, go ahead, Abby.
President Poroshenko said that tomorrow's meeting in Minsk is one of the last chances to declare unconditional ceasefire. Is that something that the U.S. agrees with? It's one of the last chances.
Well, I think one of the last chances, certainly I think Chancellor Merkel said something similar yesterday, in the sense that we all believe there's no military solution. We're committed to a diplomatic solution and trying to find a path forward. We've tried. We have had the Minsk protocols and agreement in place in September, and Russia and the Russian-backed separatists declined to implement that. So we'll see where we are after tomorrow. One of the last, we will, of course, diplomatic and diplomacy is certainly our preferred option here, but we'll certainly evaluate what comes out of tomorrow.
Are you aware of any attacks that actually emanate from the eastern part of the Ukraine, let's say against the rest of the Ukraine, like Kiev and so on? Are there any maybe guerrilla attacks from that part of the country?
I'm not quite sure what you're referring to.
I'm referring to, are there operations that are being carried out from the eastern part of Ukraine that declared itself somewhat independent or whatever against the rest of the Ukraine, like even in Kiev or big cities and so on? Or is it the other way around? Or there are attacks from the central government against the eastern region?
Well, I think we've all seen reports on the ground and where the focus of the back and forth action is. I don't have any new attacks to announce for you today.
Off the
Okay.
beaten track here, but Russian media, Russian commentators have been making a lot of this Chiron thing that was on a certain news network yesterday, saying that the president was considering arming pro-U.S. troops, recognizing that this network does
We
not
don't
speak
rate
for the
Chirons.
exactly, recognizing that the television network does not represent the views of the U.S. government. I just want to check to make sure with you. Does the administration consider Ukrainian troops, the Ukrainian army, to be pro-U.S.?
We consider them pro-Ukraine.
Okay, but you don't consider them to be fighting on your behalf?
They're fighting on their own behalf.
Sudan,
Russia? Oh, can we finish Ukraine and Russia, and then
Sure,
we'll go back
no
to you? Go
problem.
ahead.
So Russia said to agree deal with Cyprus to use their ports and airstrips. And do you have any input on that?
I don't have any details on that. I'm happy to talk to our team. It's an agreement. You're saying it's an agreement to
Right,
use
between
ports
Russia and Cyprus. So Russia can use Cyprus ports and airstrips.
Okay, let me look into it, and I'll talk to our EUR team and see if we
And
have
also
anything on that.
maybe you can talk on Putin's visit to Egypt. They are coming on agreement, like they can, and they are going to end use of US dollars between these two countries and some armed deal. So what
I don't believe that was what was announced, nor do I believe that's what the government of Egypt would say if asked. I certainly would suggest you ask them that question. As you know, we provide a great deal of security assistance to the government of Egypt. We've seen reports that the government of Egypt has signed an MOU about nuclear power. I don't have more details about that. My understanding is that's been something under discussion for some time. We support peaceful nuclear power programs as long as obligations under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, to which Egypt is a signatory, and obligations to the IAEA are fully met, and the highest international standards regulating security, non-proliferation, export controls, and physical security are strictly followed. But I don't have additional details on the MOU or what the contents of it may
So
be.
you wouldn't oppose a nuclear deal for peaceful purposes between Russia and Egypt?
Correct. We don't have details on it, but I just think I stated that. Go ahead.
Yeah, related to that, a few weeks ago when President Putin visited India, you said, I don't quote you exactly, but you said something like you told the Indians it's not time for business with Russia. Would you say the same to your Egyptian ally?
Business as usual. Sure, I think I may have said something like that. That remains the case. At the same time, we certainly understand that countries out there have a range of relationships with one another, so we can certainly speak to what deals or agreements are and whether we have concerns about it. We don't have concerns about what we know to date about this MOU. You wanted to Sudan? Okay.
Please. The Sudanese official, Brahim Gandour, is in town. Do you have any readout for his meetings? Did he meet anybody at the State Department, and what's the purpose of?
Well, he was planning to meet with senior U.S. government officials. I don't have a readout of that. I know my colleague Marie talked a little bit about the plans for him to come last week, so I can check and see if we have a readout of the meetings or any more details.
Are you considering taking off Sudan from the list of states sponsor of terrorism?
As you know, we don't predict that type of thing. Obviously, there are processes in place for some places, but I believe this was an official visit of senior Sudanese government officials. That's what it was. We'll see if there's more details we can share from the meetings. More on this or a new topic? Go ahead.
Somalia.
Okay.
Now, a number of congressional figures have written to Secretary Kerry expressing their concerns about the fact that Somalians in America no longer have much of an avenue for sending money back home because of the closure of a bank in California that was doing much of that wire transfer business. They are deeply concerned about the humanitarian and the security aspects of this and what the implications might be, and have called on Secretary Kerry to convene some kind of an emergency meeting. Two questions. One, do you have a sense of how concerned, how urgent a matter this is within the State Department? And secondly, are there any moves afoot to address these concerns by convening some kind of interagency meeting?
Well, I can assure you that Somalia is certainly, and the challenges that the people there are facing are certainly an issue of primary importance to our Assistant Secretary, Linda Thomas Greenfield, who frequently travels to the region. I don't have any update on this specific issue. I'm happy to take the question and talk to our team and see if there's any specific action being taken. I can assure you that there are interagency meetings about a range of topics on nearly a daily basis, which we don't typically outline, but I will see and look more into the specifics of the bank and remittances, it sounds like, to family members. Is that the particular
That's
issue?
correct,
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I will take it.
Can we change topics?
Sure. Why don't we go
Somalia.
just go ahead, Somalia?
Yeah. Is there any update that you can provide on the scheduled opening of the U.S. diplomatic mission to Somalia, the reopening that was announced last year?
I did not. I haven't talked to our team about that in some time. I don't know that I have an update, but in the same, I will talk to them about that as well. Go ahead.
Anti-corruption leader Arvind Kejriwal has won the Delhi state elections. He's won 67 out of 70 seats, and Prime Minister Modi has admitted defeat on his behalf. So, do you have a reaction to this democratic process? It has significance because after President Obama's visit, I was there for 2 days, and the BJP was using the visit, and their chief ministerial candidate, who has lost now, was saying that the India was flying with Obama, and now Delhi is going to fly. So do you have a reaction to this
Well,
anti-corruption?
let me separate the two things. One, I'd first refer you to the government of India for information about the elections. That is an internal matter for the people and the government of India. As it relates to our relationship or partnership or the president's visit, as you know, we certainly see our relationship with India as one that is growing, that has great potential, and that is reflected by the fact that the Secretary and the President of the United States both visited India within the same month, the first month of this year. So that speaks for itself, but I don't have any particular comment or analysis on the election results.
Just because we are such, strong supporters of anti-corruption, anti-all. So this is, a leader who has, been doing this anti-corrupt. His whole platform was on anti-corruption. So won't the U.S. support such a, move by the Indian population to give him a win?
I'm not sure I'm understanding your question specifically.
The question is that he's an anti-corruption leader. So don't you support
and we
the
don't
people
engage in endorsing individual political candidates. So I would refer you to the government of India and the people of India. Go ahead. Sure.
Today, the Israeli press reported that Israel is planning to expand settlement communities in Emmanuel, Kedemim, Nevat Zopa, Wadi Yericho, over the Green Line, which is, the occupied West Bank. And the Palestinians are, saying that it's an urgent matter. They're calling on the world not just to condemn, but actually to do something. Is there anything that you would do to sort of change the minds of the Israeli government?
Well, Said, I haven't seen those reports. You all know what our position is on settlements. I'm happy to take a closer look at that. It's an issue we regularly raise, as you know.
Okay. And yesterday, the former Israeli justice minister was in town, Yossi Beilin, and he basically suggested that maybe a confederacy between the Palestinians and the Israelis that would keep, let's say, the settler population in the West Bank and would have separate seats at the UN, but also would have shared borders, shared water resources, and so on. Is that like a novel idea? Is that something that you would support?
I don't have details on his plan or proposal, Said, so I'm not in a position to comment on that.
Israel and
Sure.
Palestinians, or more with Israel.
Okay.
First of all, do you have anything new to say about Prime Minister Netanyahu's plans to come to speak to Congress next month, given the fact that he gave a speech last night and just said that despite all the criticism and all the concern that he's still going to do it, and then this morning said it again publicly through Twitter that he's going to come. Given that, the fact that you have at least two senators now saying that they're not going to go, do you have anything new to say about it? Do you have any comment on members of Congress deciding to go or to stay away from it?
I don't on either one.
Okay, so the position on his speech is the same as before?
Correct.
Which is, remind me, because I was away for a while, is that,
Well,
it's okay?
Well,
You
I
don't have a
think we
problem
said
with
at the time that certainly the process that through which this came about was unusual,
Right.
but the Prime Minister of Israel has come many times in the past, and we're familiar with his positions on Iran.
Secondly, there was a report yesterday about a group of people, Arab Israeli mayors or Arab Israeli officials who are actively promoting the anyone but Netanyahu campaign or involved in it somehow, who were given some kind of a special audience at the consulate. And what can you say about that?
Well, I've seen the reports. The article is filled with inaccuracies. We are firmly committed to the principle of non-intervention in Israeli elections. The details on this particular case are the accurate details, I should say, are that some of the members of this group were coming to the embassy to receive their visas, something that we do on a regular basis. While they were at the embassy, they had a courtesy meeting with some embassy staff members. The kind of meeting is very common for community leaders like mayors as part of normal ongoing embassy efforts to engage with the widest range, I should say, of Israelis possible. The group invited embassy staff to visit their villages, chatted about life in civil society in America. The embassy officers shared their predictions about the Super Bowl. I mean, it was a pretty informal discussion. We regularly speak with representatives, the embassy, I should say, from a wide range of communities in Israel, and this is unrelated to Israeli elections. This is part of the work that we do in community outreach as an embassy.
All right, well, but given the sensitivities around the Israeli election and the claims and counterclaims that have gone back and forth, the fact that some people view Prime Minister Netanyahu's visit here as being inappropriate, and the White House saying that it won't, senior officials won't meet with him because the election is so close. I mean, is it a good idea for the consulate or the embassy to be having meetings with people who are involved in the Israeli political process right now?
Wouldn't all of the people in the country potentially be involved? I think we'd have to shut down our operations unnecessarily for months if that was our rule of thumb. We think it's unfortunate that this has been received as controversial. Our view is that ongoing outreach, providing visas, is part of what we do for government services. Okay. It's not partisan. It's not about one party in the country.
So you have been assured, or you can assure, and so you can assure us that there was nothing political about the conversation or about the meeting that happened at the consulate.
I can assure you, unless you think discussion of the Super Bowl is.
Jen,
well, I don't know.
Depends on who you're a fan of, Matt.
On this point of intervention,
yes.
Now I recall very clearly that back in 1996, President Clinton received the Labor Party in the midst of an election, right before the election. So it was giving like a clear signal then. In 1999, the same thing with Ehud Barak and so on.
Well,
so
I would encourage you to Google who was critical of that at the time, Saeed.
Okay.
Go ahead. On Israel?
Oh,
sorry.
Israel
Did you want to
related.
finish, Saeed? I didn't know if you had a question in there. Are you sure? Okay. Go ahead.
Yesterday, the president at his news conference raised some eyebrows by saying that the victims of the shooting in Paris at the kosher deli were random. Your colleague at the White House has apparently said something similar today. Is that really with it? I mean, does the administration really believe that these people, that the victims of this attack were not singled out because they were of a particular faith?
Well, as you know, I believe if I remember the victims specifically, there were not all victims of one background or one nationality. So I think what they mean by that is, I don't know that they spoke to the targeting of the grocery store or that specifically, but the individuals who were impacted.
Well, I mean, right, but when the secretary went and paid respects to it, he was with a member of the Jewish community there.
Naturally, given that is the grocery store is one that.
Well, don't you think that the target, maybe even if the victims came from different backgrounds or different religions, different nationalities, wasn't the store itself was the target? Was it not?
But I mean, that's different than the individuals being. I don't have any more to.
All right. Well,
really...
does the administration believe that this was an anti-Jewish or an attack on the Jewish community in Paris?
I don't think we're going to speak on behalf of French authorities and what they believe was the situation at play here.
Yeah, but if a guy goes into a kosher market and starts shooting it up, he's not looking for Buddhists, is he?
Well, again, Matt, I think it's relevant that obviously the individuals in there who were shopping and working at the store.
Who does the administration expect shops at a kosher? I mean, might, but an attacker going into a store that is clearly identified as being one of, as identified with one specific faith. I'm not sure I understand how it is that you can't say that this was a. This was a targeted attack.
I just don't have more for you, Matt. It's an issue for the French government to address.
A quick follow-up. Do you have any comment on the opening of a Palestinian embassy today in Stockholm? There's a big ceremony and so on, and it's like a full-fledged embassy. Do you have any comment on that?
I think our view continues to be that we believe that we support the aspirations of the Palestinian people to have their own state. As you know, we're very supportive of efforts to achieve a two-state solution. But we think it should be done through direct negotiations. I don't have any further comment than that. Go ahead. Turkey? Sure.
Yeah. If you recall that Angela Merkel mentioned that the foreign fighters are going to Syria mostly from Turkey, and also Prime Minister Abadi said the same thing. A couple of weeks ago, some senators from the United States government, also this United States Congress, they said the same thing. So, and also the response from the Prime Minister Davutoglu said that Turkey cannot control its borders with Syria. Do you have any comment on that, or U.S. have done anything to help Turkey to control its borders?
Well, one, I would say it's important to emphasize that one of our focuses of the anti-ISIL coalition is going after cracking down on foreign fighters, working with countries to address challenges at their border, putting in place new laws. Many countries have done that. We've certainly been working with Turkey on that. They have a border with Syria. That is a challenging circumstance for any country to work with, but this has been an issue of discussion and one we continue to work with the government of Turkey on.
How cooperative are they so far? Are they like issuing any new law, anything to
They've
ban?
taken a number of steps. I'm sure the government of Turkey can outline for you, and as you know, they remain an important coalition partner and one that General Allen and Ambassador McGurk regularly visit with in order to discuss exactly these issues. Did you have something in the back? Go ahead.
The Committee to Protect Journalists, CPJ, wrote a letter to Turkish Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoğlu to express their concerns about the anti-press action in Turkey. Do you have same concerns about that? Did you see that letter?
Well, we'd certainly refer you to the Committee to Protect Journalists on the specifics of their letter to the Turkish government. As we've said before, we believe media freedom and due process are key elements in every healthy democracy and are enshrined in the Turkish constitution. I'd also remind you that on December 14th, we issued a statement that expressed our concern at the detention of journalists and media representatives following police raids on the offices of media that have been critical of the government. So we continue to urge Turkish authorities to ensure that their actions uphold Turkey's core values and democratic foundations. Go ahead.
Different subject.
Okay.
North Korea. Do you have any
North
update?
Korea?
Yeah, North
Okay.
Korea. Do you have any update on your review of whether to relist North Korea on the state-sponsored?
I don't have any update.
Okay. And how about their nuclear-related activities? There are some reports about them possibly restarting the 5-megawatt nuclear reactor in Yongbyon. Do you have any updates on their?
I don't. We typically don't get into those type of matters. I know I addressed yesterday the reported missile launch. I still don't have any confirmation of that from over the weekend. All right.
No,
Oh,
I want to go to Malaysia
okay.
and the Anwar verdict.
Yes.
And as you know, I'm sure you're aware, Malaysia holds the chairmanship of ASEAN this year. Does your concern about this case and about what it says about the human rights situation in Malaysia or the independence of the judiciary, will that have any consequences for U.S. participation in the annual meetings that the ASEAN chair hosts?
Not aware of any plans to change our participation.
So is it accurate to say that the rebalance to Asia, the administration's rebalance to Asia, trumps any concerns you might have about human rights and rule of law in that region?
I would not say that's accurate. I just conveyed strongly how we feel about the verdict, as well as the fact that we raise these issues in this specific case. We have raised it regularly. I also conveyed that this will be one of many factors that influences the course of our relationship. I'm just answering the question on whether I think it will impact whether or not we attend the ASEAN.
Right. I was narrowing it to their chairmanship of ASEAN. So the answer is you don't know, or it's unlikely, or you just.
I'm not aware of any plans. I'm happy to check if
Right.
there's any changes to that.
As you know, the Thailand still does not have a civilian elected government. The junta is still in power, and yet the United States went ahead and sent Assistant Secretary Russell there. The Cobra Gold exercises went off or are going off as planned. The leader of the junta said today in an interview that he said that it was possible that the military might step in again, and if the next if once they get a civilian government, it doesn't like what it sees. I'm wondering if you have any comment about the commitment or lack thereof to democracy in Thailand.
Well, first, on the first part of what you conveyed, we did participate in the Cobra Gold exercises, but we also significantly refocused and scaled down it in response to the actions or the events in Thailand. Also,
The coup?
yes.
Can you
which
say
we've
it?
called it. We can.
The
Coup,
coup?
coup, coup.
There, okay. Thank you.
The second thing I would say is that Assistant Secretary Russell, when he was in town, reiterated the fact that in order for our relationship to be at what it once was, there are steps that the government of Thailand needs to take. That remains the case. In terms of those reports, obviously that would raise significant concerns. We respond to actions, of course, but I can check and see if we've raised concerns about those specific comments.
Okay, the comments are specifically the ones from the general
Correct.
to
Yes,
the newspaper.
understood.
Go ahead. Backtrack real briefly
Of
to
course.
Iraq. General Allen was quoted in a Jordanian publication saying that there's going to be a major counteroffensive on the ground in Iraq very shortly. I just want to confirm with you that he's referring to a counteroffensive led by Iraqi forces, because there have been some reports that indicate this has something to do with the Jordanian troops moving along the border. And
So I answered this a little bit yesterday, but I'm happy to reiterate that obviously DoD and the government of Iraq would be the ones running point on operational planning, and that's not something, as you all know, that we outline or detail publicly. Even they don't, for good reason. Our primary concern here is that any action on Mosul, which is I think what this was a reference to, needs to be done in a methodical, coordinated, and planned way. So, these are efforts that would certainly be led by the Iraqi security forces, and our concern is making sure that an offensive would be ready. So that's what he's referring to, but certainly not predicting that we would leave that to DoD and the Iraqi security forces. Go ahead.
Last week, Marie had said that there were still a number of American hostages being held overseas, including some by ISIS. Are there still Americans being held by ISIS?
Well, we are aware of reports that other U.S. citizens have gone missing in Syria due to privacy concerns. We're not going to, and the safety concerns, we're not going to further comment or outline them more specifically.
Just a quick clarification. The question was not about endorsing a candidate. The elections are over and there's no endorsement. The question was that this election was fought on a platform of anti-corruption. And so do you comment that such a good result came out of anti-corruption?
Again,
While we talk so much about
I don't have any comment on the outcome of the elections and what it means.
You said we're aware of reports that the U.S. citizens have gone missing in Syria. Does that mean that you're aware of reports that they've gone missing and they've been somehow abducted, or that they're being held against their will?
Well, there are some reports of that as well.
And is there this is plural?
I'm just not going to get into more specific details.
Reports of missing and of abductions.
I'm not going to get into more details.
I'm sorry, is this new
No,
cases,
I'm not referring
or are
to
these
new reports. I'm referring to, in general, what reports. There's not new reports.
But for privacy reasons, I can understand you don't want to get into a huge amount of detail. But if you can't say it's more, is it more than one?
I'm not going to get into numbers or more specifics.
Can you get into the number of reports that you've seen?
No, I cannot. Do we have any more
But
comments?
you haven't gotten any indication or communication from ISIS specifically about American hostages recently? New reports?
I'm not referring to new reports in that way, no. All right.
The Americans that may have joined ISIS and now they want to come back, but they are unable to come
I
back.
don't have anything for you on that, Said. Do you have one more? Go ahead.
American hostages in areas other than Syria?
Are
As
there
in,
American hostages in
do you
other
have
parts of the world?
information in Iraq?
I'm just not going to get into more details on hostages.
The question, the way you phrased it, leaves it open as to whether the people who have gone missing, the reports that you've seen of Americans who have gone missing there, are being held, or if perhaps they have joined one of the groups who is
I was
that is
not
fighting.
intending
And just,
to
are you
leave that
suggesting
impression.
that
We are aware that there are reports of some individuals, but from the Western.
individuals who are there against their will, or both individuals that are against?
I
their
apologize. There's just not more I'm going to get into on
Well,
this. I did
because-
not mean to create confusion. The question was about hostages. That's what I was referring to.
Okay.
Okay? Thanks, everyone.